Good day everyone, my name is Richard Roble and today I'll discussing about alternator. What is an alternator? So an alternator is an electrical generator that converts mechanical energy to electrical energy in the form of alternating current. And also alternators use as the rotating magnetic field with a stationary armature. So this is the parts of an alternator. So the pulley, the housing, the toe bearing, the rotor, the voltage regulator, rectifier, and the protective cap. So this is the function of each part of an alternator. So pulley, the first parts of an alternator. So the pulley function is to rotate the rotor assembly as the engine is running. Is the pulley works as a connector between the rotor assembly and the engine through a drive belt where the unknown alternator belt or serpentine belt. So pulley also, there are three types of alternator pulley: solid pulleys, one-way catch pulleys, and the overrunning alternator decoupler pulleys. So even they have different types, but the function is still remain the same, to rotating the rotor assembly as the engine runs. So next, the housing. So the housing is the second part of an alternator. So the housing function is to protect the inner parts of alternator and become a household of them like stator, bearing, rectifier, and so on. Housing also, the housing are split into two parts, front housing and rear housing. So the front housing is located near the pulley, while the rear housing is at the opposite. Between of them, there is a stator assembly body. So next, the third part of alternator is the bearing. So the bearing function is to make the rotor assembly rotate freely. They attach in front of and at the end of the rotor shaft. They support the rotor shaft so the rotation runs smooth and fairly. So these bearings sits on the alternator housing. Front bearing is attached on the front housing and the rear bearing is attached on the rear housing. So the fourth part of alternator is the rotor. So the rotor assembly function is to generate magnetic field by electromagnetic force were built up because the electric current flows from the battery to the rotor. So when the rotor assembly is spinning, the magnetic field will cut the stator coil. As the magnetic field cuts the stator coil generates electricity energy or faster the rotor rotation. It's increasing the electric current will generate in stator coil. So next, the stator. So the stator is the fifth part of alternator. So the stator assembly function is to generate electric current as the rotor assembly being electromagnetic cuts the stator coil. So the stator is a stationary set of windings that surrounds the rotor. The coil built in rounded shape so the rotor assembly can rotate inside the stator coil. So in so there are two types of coil connection were used inside the stator coil. Y connection and delta connection. In a Y connection type stator, the wire ends from the stator winding are connected to a neutral junction so that the circuit looks like the letter Y. A Y type stator provides good current output at low engine speed. So next, the rectifier. So the rectifier is the sixth part of alternator. So the rectifier is used to convert current from alternating current AC to direct current DC during the charging process. So since the stator windings generate an alternating current, it is cannot be used in most car electrical system. So to convert the alternating current to be direct current, an alternator is equipped with rectifier were built from 6 or more Jodis. So next, the voltage regulator. So the voltage regulator is the next part of alternator. So the voltage regulator controls the amount the of power distributed from the alternator to the battery. Is in order to control the charging process, as we mentioned before, more faster the rotor rotations is increasing the electric current were generated in stator coil. So the voltage regulator is used to control the output voltage. So next, the protective cap. So the protective cap is used to protect the rectifier components were placed outside of the rear housing. So this protective cap is depends by the alternator makers. Some makers did not use protective cap, but they put the all parts inside the alternator and just leaving the terminal plus B and socket. Next, so this is the schematic diagram of alternator. So the stator, the rectifier, and the two Judis, the rotor shaft, slip rings, and voltage regulator, and Judy trio. So as you can see, it is connected stator to rectifier, and also this slip rings connected to voltage from rotor to slip rings and to voltage regulator. Next, so this is the interior of an alternator. So as you can see, it is connected to this stator field, rotor field, and the rectifier, slip rings, and the voltage regulator. Next, so this is the formulas involved in solving problems involving alternators. So as you can see, this is the generated EMF per phase equals 2.22 pitch factor, then distribution factor, then frequency, flux per pole, number of conductors. So this is the pitch factor equals sine times 60 times pitch, then 180 over slats per pole, and this is the pitch equals correspond in number of slats over slats per pole. So this is the one. So you can see E sub P equals generated EMF per phase, and T sub P equals pitch factor or correspond factor. The K sub B equals belt factor or the distribution factor, and F the frequency, and the flux per pole, number of conductors, the number of slats per pole per phase. This is the problems solving alternators. So number one, so a three-piece alternator has 6 slots per pole per piece. Determine the distribution factor. So N equals slots per pole per piece is 6 slots. So slots per pole equals 6 times 3 equals 18. Dayon, 180 degree of slots per pole equals 180 over 16. So 180 over 16 equals 10 degree. So, mga ganyan itong diri. Wala. So, ako na siyang gamitan. So, makakuha siya equals sin 6 times 10 degree. So, na naman siya. Mo ni 10 degree. May value. So, kuha na to. So, over 2. So, over 6 sin 10 over 2. So, makakuha na siya. So, ang answer niya kay 0.956. So, the distribution factor is 0.956. Number 2. What is the speed of a 100 kilowatts, 230 volts, 3-piece, 4-pole, 60 alternators? So, N equals 20 if over pole equals 120 times 80 over 4. So, the answer is 1,800 RPM. So, that's all guys. Thank you so much.